What's up, everybody? This episode of Play the Bay is brought to you by BetOnline and Believe Podcasting Network. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. The NBA is in full swing and college basketball heats up as the schools make their way to the madness. The tournament is coming, and so is the $100,000 Bracket Madness contest, as BetOnline is the spot to be for all your bracketology needs. BetOnline has you covered for all the news, scores, and odds. It's the best way to place your bets, and it's free to sign up. Head to the website betonline.ag or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And now, Play the Bay.
From Channelside Drive, where Lord Stanley Cup rests.
Time ticks down! The Lightning win the Stanley Cup!
Travel across the bridge to St. Pete to find our American League champs.
And the Tampa Bay Rays have just won the American League pennant.
And get ready to fire the cannon.
Lob pass toward the end zone. Gronkowski, he makes the catch. Touchdown Tampa Bay. What a great grab by Gronk.
Because it's time for another episode of Play the Bay. Play the Bay.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Play the Bay presented by Believe Podcast Network and Three Daughters Brewing. I'm here with Chip because it's a two-man-woman show today.
We got ladies and gentlemen only. We know our co-host Evan had a little, what do we call this? A little bout in the hospital, I guess, maybe? With
a bout? Yeah, I would say that.
A little bout, maybe. Some throat problems, but we know he's monitoring the board this evening and making sure that we sound lovely. So, Evan, we're wishing you all the best, and we're glad to know that you're out and that you're okay.
Yeah, as much as I would love for him to read the ad reads in his scratchy post-hospital voice, you have to listen to me do it. So,
I think we'll be okay. The world will turn. We will be good.
And the world has been upside down because free agency has been more than we could have ever expected, more than anyone could have ever expected. And honestly, trying to track free agent moves so far this week has been like its own full-time job. I can't keep up with it. I can't keep track of it. I don't know who's going where. All I know is the Chicago Bears franchise and fan base, again, is very disappointed because somehow Russell Wilson turned into Andy Dalton, and I just have never felt so bad for one single franchise. So, sorry.
Nagy, those guys are just lining the road to unemployment right now.
Oh.
I don't see how I heard today, though, that the offer they made, I mean, I didn't get the details of the offer, but they said it was really aggressive. So you figure they were ready to give up half the farm. I mean, they were literally, I guess they made a decent offer. We'll never know. Maybe they'll come out and tell us later. But yeah, Andy Dalton is he's done. He's curtains. I don't care where you put him. He had better wide receivers in Dallas. Now he's going somewhere they have Robinson, and that's about it. So it's probably going to be worse.
Yeah, and honestly, after Robinson's still up in the air, like he could actually go somewhere else, but doubtful. But after this year, I mean, what is going to happen to that franchise? Because they're not setting themselves up for success, and then Robinson will probably be gone. And hopefully, I don't know. I'm trying to get the Jags to swoop in and bring him back. Bring him home.
That would be a good move. I think the Bears will pick in the top 5 again next year and have the same, they'll be in the same spot. They'll just have less money and they'll still have a good defense, hopefully. But all those guys, they talked about making a push because, those guys are getting older. That defense can't carry a team for 10 years. I mean, it's not going to happen. I know right before, Kaylee, we were going through the intro, and this is weird, but the Bills traded Lee Smith, the tight end, to the Falcons for a 2022 late round pick, which is kind of the only thing I could think is that the Titans ran double tight end sets a lot.
Yeah.
So they want Lee Smith, obviously, to be that other inline tight end with Hayden Hurst. But that's been about it for the Falcons in the NFC South. The Buccaneers have been kind of doing their thing and making it all happen.
It's actually funny because we'll talk about the NFC South and the Bucs, but it's kind of funny because if you were ever going to, I guess, craft or script two back-to-back, like must win it all in, throw everything you got for the Super Bowl, like these are the 2 years to do it. It's kind of like what I said about the Jags in 2017. It's like, okay, JJ Watt's out, right? Like everyone's kind of operating at like 50% besides the Jaguars. So like if we're going to win the Super Bowl, this is really it. And that's how it is for the Bucs, is like these 2 seasons. Like as I was going through the NFC South, I was like, wow, this is a pitiful division. Like not NFC least, but definitely a pitiful division in terms of the gap between these 3 teams and the Buccaneers. So it's kind of like 8 of your games, right? Or however many games you're going to play against your 6. Yeah. 6 of your games are basically a lock, because you lost to the Saints, but that doesn't seem likely next year. So we'll get into it, but it's kind of wild how you couldn't have scripted 2 better seasons, not only for like bringing Tom Brady in, giving him everything he wanted, signing all these people, but also you have 3 division rivals that are just kind of like not doing anything.
Everybody is like clearing their trays and like resetting, getting the plate, getting everything together again. And there really is, I mean, the timing, like you said, it couldn't be more perfect. You have one organization that just had a new head coach and is looking to get a quarterback and needs a quarterback with Carolina. The Falcons just gutted their front office and got a new coach, and they're doing a new GM for the first time in a hot minute. So they're out to lunch, and the Bucs, like we said, they just kind of they have good timing. The Saints, as we know, are losing a Hall of Fame quarterback for the first time. Drew Brees has been under center for 20 years, I think.
Yeah. 15 in Carolina or in New Orleans.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're changing guard too. So it really is kind of a perfect storm, and Tampa just wants to ride the wave up to the top of the division again. So,
yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. So last week we talked about Levante David, Chris Godwin. Now, obviously, Tom Brady's restructure freed up $19 million in cap space. Shaq Barrett, obviously, is kind of the big name. Rob Gronkowski is the other. Let's talk about those, because I think obviously Shaq Barrett's not fully on the books, but re-signed for 4 years, $72 million, $36 million in guarantees, which is really the big number, especially in 2021. But, making this work, right? Like, and we kind of joked about it all throughout the week. Does the salary cap even exist for the Buccaneers or for the NFL in general? Because I'm watching these deals get made and I'm confused, because I mean, 2 weeks ago, we're like, there's no way they can sign all these people. The math doesn't math, right? Like, it just doesn't work. And then now we're talking about them bringing everyone back except maybe Leonard Fournette or Antonio Brown is a possibility. But like they're in talks with Ndamukong Suh, and it's like, okay, so who's not coming back? Like, where is this money coming from? I'm very confused. I please try to explain this to me.
I mean, it's kind of a mystery to me as well. And the only reason why I'm laughing is because you can literally go, and it's great to go to Spot Track, and all the numbers that I have are according to Spot Track, but they have guys and all the contracts are back, written. And that's why a lot of teams have gotten in trouble this year, because this is the first time, and God knows when, the NFL salary cap went down. So teams that positioned players, mostly veterans who were, 5-6 years in, and they would backload salaries. Well, what's happening is players are taking incentive heavy contracts, and the cap number won't be effective this year. If there are incentives, they know they're going to hit if they sign a multi-year deal. So they can load incentives to not count on this year and to count next year. So basically what you get is a fancy piece of paper touched by a lawyer, a cap analyst, a general manager that just like loads everything on the back. And if the salary cap ever goes down again, and we hope it doesn't, we hope when we come around to the NFL season this year, obviously full fans, everybody's there. TV rights, everything goes up again. But if this situation ever comes up again, it's going to be twice as bad as where we are now, because teams are writing contracts that just don't make any sense. Taysom Hill obviously one of the guys 4 years. I think it was 140 million. It was all voidable. It was something that they can just void to just delay his contract. So I don't know, but the Buccaneers, obviously, like we said, the Shaq Barrett contract is the one thing that's still not on their their roster and their pay sheet. So they still have about 8.5 is what it shows left without Shaq's contract. But we also know the draft pool, if you have a draft pick in every round this year, looks like it's going to be about 7.1 to 7.3 million to pay all your draft picks, and that obviously comes out of the cap. So, I mean, to answer your question, Kaylee, I cannot explain it because it does not – there is no math or no rhyme and reason for it. I just say that I think after this year, I might take a salary cap class and just like learn how to hide hundreds of millions of dollars in paper and backloaded contracts. Just to see what happens.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun because we're seeing the Bucs who are at like the very beginning of that cycle, right? Like they had, they're finding money out of nowhere. And like you said, really backloading onto future years, all of these incentives and contracts and just really kind of spreading out that cap hit. And you're seeing it come full circle, specifically with the Saints and the Falcons in their division, because those two teams did that. And now they're facing that balloon and that bubble of those contracts where it's now like, oh, what did we do? And like, what are we working with? And the Saints expecting it to go up. I mean, I don't think they expected it to go up 100 million, which is what they were over the cap by when they started, but they definitely expected it to go up by something. And so going down, you're just seeing this cycle come to a completion. And I think that is where Tampa Bay is going to set itself up to be. We'll dive into kind of the future of the franchise a little bit later, but Shaq Barrett specifically, I thought it was interesting because I don't know if you saw this, but he made this comment today along the lines of Tampa Bay was the best offer, right? Like it was the best offer I had, but the Bucs gave him an offer right at noon yesterday and basically said, here's the deal. It's going to expire. We're willing to go out into free agency and explore other options at your position. So you let us know if you want to be here or not, right? So it wasn't necessarily that he had 10 teams vying for his contract and the Bucs simply gave him the most money. It was that they put an expiration date and a quick one on a contract that he really wanted to accept because obviously why wouldn't you want to go contend for another Super Bowl when you know that your team is mostly returning? So I'm interested to see if you think that he would have gotten a better deal elsewhere and who would have been kind of those top target teams for him to go to if the Bucs hadn't secured him back.
Man, I got to tell you, I think, and like we said, team-friendly deal. I mean, I think he could have been in line for 19, 20, and I mean the Bucs were somewhere, they're in that ballpark, but like we said, it's a team-friendly deal, so a lot of this is backloaded, a lot of it is incentives. He could have gotten more guaranteed money and more probably upfront money. I mean, I could totally see the Jets, I could totally see Miami, I could see some of the teams with the larger cap numbers. Would have been interesting to see. We saw the Patriots had Judon from the Ravens. He could have had a crack at that there. So I think he could have had more guaranteed money and more upfront money. Obviously, a lot of other places, but like we've been discussing, I mean, this is a team that really is. They've kind of cracked the unofficial puzzle on the Chiefs. Now granted, the Chiefs weren't at 100%. Their line was completely devastated. You had two starting tackles. One of them played guard, so they were depleted. But they killed Kansas City. They really did. I mean, on the defensive side of the football, KC had nothing to do offensively. They were confused. The pass rush was getting to Mahomes every play, it seemed like. So having those linebackers and keeping that core together, I think was probably the most important. And we've even talked about it. If we were going to trade this offseason, I think you and I said, maybe Evan, all three of us said, keep the defense and obviously get rid of some of the offense and you can backfill that. And Trevor, yeah, buddy, you're right. They enjoy winning. They kept the team together. It is a great time to be in Tampa. I will tell you this. I am going to flip the shoe and look a little bit ahead. in the next year or two, when you're dealing with the contracts that you're backloading now, if the cap continue, if something changes again, you will be in a worse spot, and the chickens will come home to roost, Bobby Boucher.
Yeah. I mean, even if it goes back up to where it was in 2019, you're still looking at a lot of issues, right? Because you're just backloading all of these things, right? Like just simple things like prorating Shaq Barrett's $18 million signing bonus over 5 years. Like those little things add up. And when you're trying to kind of keep things in line and keep things moving at a steady pace, like eventually that bubble's over. And I think it's pretty interesting that, you know, I don't know how important Ndamukong Suh is to getting back to the Super Bowl, but I do think it's interesting because, you know, Kansas City is kind of rebuilding, and they're in the process of rebuilding and really showing that they're willing to go out and do it and put players on their offensive line in positions that are going to fill those holes, and then add players that are kind of star guys who are going to be playmakers, game changers, just difference makers in the game, not only in the regular season, but in the postseason. So you're looking at an easy breezy division, but then once you get outside of it, you know, it's fun to watch Bruce Arians, you know, pound back beers on a boat and say like, all your asses are coming back and none of you are going anywhere. And he meant it, obviously they're coming back, but how confident, even if they return Ndamukong Suh, which again, I'm not sure how the cap situation is going to work as it is, but say they do return Ndamukong Suh, say they return Ryan Succop and they have no kicking issues. So that's most of the guys that really need to be returned to this team to make that happen as seamlessly as they're trying to make it happen. What are the chances that they go back to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl?
I mean, the NFC South used to be one of the more competitive divisions, and obviously, like we said, there's a window and there's timing, and they've kind of squirreled in right at the perfect time. So I think the NFC is kind of a, you know, you're not going to see many teams change. The Packers really, they didn't change that much. They kept Aaron Jones. They, you know, I think they are going to lose Lindsley up front. They're all pro center. I have not seen an offer go out to him yet, although a lot of the restricted free agents and all that kind of ends tomorrow at 4 p.m. on the 17th. So everything is wide open. You know, your contracts expire for restricted free agents and you become unrestricted. So then the free agency period continues to go on till the start of the season. So there are some players that are still, you know, restricted and still can be talked to. I think 4:00 ends that. So you'll see more cuts after that. But I mean, who else do you think in the NFC, I mean, is really going to make a move? I mean,
yeah.
I just don't see it unless I don't see any big changes, or at least enough to really teams getting positioned to take the Bucs on. I mean, I just didn't see Seattle's going to lose Chris Carson. They do have Penny. I don't know if he was off an ACL. So some of the teams that I've been thinking about are going to actually be offensively maybe a little bit worse for Green Bay and Seattle. So that means obviously Tampa's defense, which is the core, which is what they kept, you know, should be easy. So yeah, we'll just have to see, but it's not going to be a breeze. You can't repeat and say that that's going to be easy, but I just don't see any NFC team that made a big enough change or a big enough push, to move forward and knock them off.
Yeah, I think, and the Packers are losing Corey Lindsley, I think, to the Chargers. So that's a whole.
Yeah, he did sign. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
so
right.
that's a whole situation where at this point, the NFC North is a little irrelevant, just given their lack of moves. Like we said, the Bears just failed to secure Russell Wilson, which to be fair, I don't know that he was necessarily going to leave, but it's just a fun storyline to poke at Bears fans for another year. But
we love talking about it.
I know. And I mean, it's great. It's not a bad time. I do feel bad. I feel bad. But yeah, I mean, in the NFC East, I kind of had high hopes for the Washington football team. Obviously, I don't necessarily know that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be the answer to all of. I mean, he's fun to watch.
He is fun to watch.
Great beard. Don't know that that's going to bring him around, but the Cowboys, obviously, depending on what they're able to do, and if Dak Prescott comes back and looks like the Dak Prescott that we know and love, then I think that's a contender. But unless the Seahawks put a ton of pieces in place to support Russell Wilson, really kind of get clear on what their offensive goal is, I can't see them making too much of a wave against the Buccaneers, and same with that entire division. So the Bucs really have a clear path in the NFC. I think the main concern is really just the AFC, because once you get back to the top, I mean, are you looking at the Chiefs again? Are you looking at the Bills because they have pieces in place to get there? I mean, it really is. I'm more concerned at this point for the Buccaneers facing whatever AFC team lands on top. We saw AFC kind of step up last year. I think it's usually kind of the Patriots dominating it. And we saw how being a normal team for the Patriots, how much they're going to go out of their way to dump money on people and try to get back to the top. But the AFC has really come out and dominated. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think all regular season we'll see the Bucs dominate, but I'd be interested to see what that Super Bowl matchup looks like should they get there again.
I saw a comment pop up about the Rams, and I can't remember if it was Jay or Courtney or maybe Trevor. But I think the Rams are an interesting question. And the question is, Matt Stafford has run for his life his entire career. Okay. And, I mean, he's got a great arm. I think, obviously, he can still move the football down the field. He's got a great complement of wide receivers. He had a good complement of wide receivers in Detroit, though. And they also have a running game, but they still have some line woes. They're still not very set there. So, I mean, I don't know how far, Stafford's had no offensive line, I guess, for a while. So I'm sure he has PTSD. So he's up at nights and he's got, dancing feet in the pocket. But we'll see. I just don't think it's not realistic to do what Tom Brady just did and acclimate in a new system, hit the ground running, and, go to the Super Bowl and win. That just doesn't happen. We don't see it. Took Phillip Rivers, most of the season to get it right with the Colts. And, it takes a lot of things to learn that terminology and get things going. But maybe Stafford, gets a little bit of help and gets a good running game, and maybe he is that guy. But that'll be a good one to watch too, the Rams, because they already have a great defense, and we know that. Yeah,
I feel like Matthew Stafford is all potential. So I'm excited to see what that potential is. But until he plays a game and gets them somewhere, I mean, we just haven't seen it happen. So yeah. I'm actually pretty interested to watch them. I just don't know that they'll put up a fight, to contend for the Super Bowl. But, I think it's kind of interesting because their biggest holes for the Buccaneers right now, they've locked up pretty much the offense. I just don't think that there's a ton of spots on the offense they need to fill besides running back. I mean, wide receiver, Antonio Brown's great. He's nice to have. He obviously made a big impact in the last 5 games of the season, but Leonard Fournette is presumably out. But, can they afford, if they can't afford Leonard Fournette, which again, I don't even know what kind of contract we're looking at for him, because one season where you kind of step off in the postseason, but have like nothing really to your name prior to that. I'm interested to see where he lands contract wise, but who are they going to go after in free agency? Are they going to wait for the draft to find a running back? And who can they afford at this point? I mean, I don't even know that they can afford anybody, but
I love we talked about this last week, and Evan was definitely pushing to go to free agency to get a running back, but I don't know how, we talked about James White, which he's had several. Everyone has heard that name, and there's been several teams contacting him. And I think we saw his last contract was $5 million, I think, or somewhere in that ballpark. So, I think that's probably the limit on where you can go. Jay bringing up some great names: Kenyon Drake, Chris Carson. Yeah, I mean, they're great.
Those are really
right. Can't afford them. Yeah, I'd say shoot for James White. I like that, but I mean, the draft is something that if you have Ronald Jones and you still have Keyshawn Vaughn, I mean, the draft is where you're going to find the cheapest player. And depending upon the round you go in, obviously the cap hit is less and less. So you can get a running back in the 5th round for $1 million. So if you're the Buccaneers, why are you going to go pay $5 million when you have a guy that can tote the load and you just want to change a pace back? Like, why don't you go draft one in the 4th, 5th round where the cap hits $1 million as opposed to $5 million for one year?
Yeah. And I mean, even guys like James White, you're looking at probably $3 million a year, which they can offload and spread out and do what they've done with every other contract that they've signed this season.
Bait and switch.
Yeah, they can do that. They can do that with Matt Breida. They can do it with Mike Davis. They can do it with Rex Burkhead. But how many times can you do that? I mean, we talked about the future. I just don't know that that's necessarily the way to go. I just think it's hedging your bets against your own team in the future to go in and sign a free agent running back. And all of these names sound nice, but they're not the top guys in this position, especially in free agency this year. So it's like, if you're not going to get the top guy and you don't have that $8 to $10 million to spend, or that 7 or 6 even, I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking there are more promising guys in the draft. And I don't know that somebody like Najee Harris will be there by the time they get there. But again, like, I mean, what else do you have to lose, right? I just don't know that any of these guys are going to come in and make such a big difference that they're going to be worth trying to backload even $2 to $3 million on 2022 or 2023.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, and you and I, thank God, are in agreement on this. I don't know how a lot of the fans feel and what everybody else feels, but the best way to build your team or to add pieces is through the draft, because you get, depending upon when you draft them, obviously, you get 4 years and a 5th year team extension, or you get a contract that's already kind of layered out and it's cheap and it's good, and you build experience and you kind of build your team through the draft. Free agency is used to plug holes, and if a guy gets injured or retires, or you kind of put everything together. So I mean, imagine what happens in next year. You're going to be, you're still going to be dealing with Brady. You signed him to another extension. He's probably going to play one more year. The type of red tape, you're going to have to unwind if one of these guys that you did sign just for that 1 year and try to go back and offload cap numbers. I mean, the amount of paperwork that the salary cap team of the Saints, the Buccaneers, and the Falcons, obviously the entire NFC South, they're probably all jacked on, coffee and just bouncing off the walls somewhere. So I would hate to have that job, trying to figure out how to backload or hide or move or position salary. But like we said, you want to have 2, they're going to have 2. And I think Bill Belichick, during this whole period, they've talked about the Patriots have spent no money in free agency ever. And last year, Bill Belichick had such an awful, inside, he must have been just not right. Yeah. Like maybe his organs moved, maybe his liver's in his heart and his heart's in his stomach. I mean, it'd probably be awful to be around him. And he was like, look, this is it. If I'm going back, they just kept everybody. We're going to spend all $80 million we have in free agency, and we're going to go beat them. And that's what it's setting up for. And that's what it kind of looks like. And I would be ecstatic if the Patriots and the Bucs played in the Super Bowl. Can you imagine that?
Would that be the highest rated Super Bowl of all time?
I think it would be.
I could agree with that.
I think it definitely would be. And, it goes back to the one thing is that, can one player really determine the outcome of a team, or can a team determine an outcome? And we saw with certain pieces, Tom Brady can run a team fairly well and can accomplish a lot with a particular set of stars around him. So, but we'll see. So running back, we think. So I'm going to say I want the draft. We already have Keyshawn Vaughn. We already have Ronald Jones. We don't need – our cap guys are already dead. They've probably lost 2 of them already. They probably quit. So give those guys a break and draft one in the 4th or 5th round. Pay him $1 million. We can do it. We can find somebody in there.
I can't decide if the Buccaneers finance team is dead and burnt out and hating their lives, or if they're like small toddlers who don't understand the value of money. And so they're just like, we just don't want to pay it this year, so we'll just pay it next year. Like, why? Like, let's just move the money away. Like, that's how I feel like they're just sitting in there, like, with plastic cash registers. Like, yeah, that works if we just put it on a different year. It's like, I have no idea what's going on, but Jason Light's a genius. That's all I'll say about it.
Well, yeah, he did what he said he was going to do. And like we talked about, you and I were laughing at Evan. He's like, oh, man, we're signing everybody, whole band. And we're like, you cannot afford it. Doesn't look like it. And they did it.
Yeah. To be fair, though, like, that's not even a bad take. It's just everyone's very confused. Like, analysts are confused. Experts in the field are confused. No one understands what's happening with the Buccaneers, because you look at them and they're making things work. And then you look at other teams who are just high key struggling to get anything done. And it's like, these teams cannot be operating in the same system. Like, this cannot be in the same league with the same salary cap, with the same situation. Like, it can't be, because like, if the Bucs are just finding magical money, why isn't every other team finding magical money? I don't know what's happening. All I do is just kind of laugh, and I just keep looking at like I said, Spot Track. It has a great cap number, and all you do is you go and you look and you just check to see where they are, and they still have 8.5, and Shaq does not have a contract. So we'll see. I mean, as time will tell, tomorrow, 4:00, obviously restricted free agents turn into unrestricted. So you'll see some more releases. I know when we came on the air, you saw Emmanuel Sanders potentially going to the Buffalo Bills, which that's massive. Scary. That's scary. Yeah. Huge for them. That's a lot of fun. I actually really like that. I think it's hard not to root for the Bills a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited. But before we dive into the NFC South's division of free agencies and other opponents for the Bucs, let's talk about our newest sponsor, eBay. Whether it's rare dead stock or the latest release, find the exact shoe you're looking for. As the original sneaker marketplace, eBay is the place to go to cop the pair you've been eyeing. With eBay's authenticity guarantee, your sneakers are meticulously inspected by independent professional authenticators. A team of experienced sneaker authenticators verify the box, the logo, stitching, and dozens of other inspection points. Each sneaker also receives an authenticity guarantee tag that includes a digital stamp of authenticity, and it also protects sellers with a verified return process. And for sneaker sellers out there, eBay has eliminated selling fees on sneakers over $100, making it free to sell or flip your collection. So go to ebay.com/sneakers today. eBay, the world's best destination for discovering great value and unique selection.
Woo-hoo-hoo. Sell them shoes, girl.
First of all, I'm trying to get my sneaker game up. So I even downloaded the sneakers app, and like, I'm trying to I just want to be able to post the graphic, on Twitter when people post the graphic and it's like, got them, and it has their shoes. Like, I want to do it one time, even though it's painful for my bank account. I just want to do it one time to be cool, because I feel like I have I have 2 pairs of shoes that are all white that I wear to the gym. And other than that, I have no style or sense of shoes at all. So I'm trying.
Hey, Paige Demakos, our lovely co-star over there at the Draft Network. She's got a good sneaker game.
Oh my gosh, the best. First of all, she has a great everything game. Like, I'm obsessed with her.
Very true.
There's nothing wrong with her. Not one thing.
We should reach out to her and make sure she's not jumping out of a window. Now that you got Andy Dalton, I mean, that's huge.
I did see her Instagram story, and she did seem a little sad. So, no. So if you know Paige, reach out to her, because
I'll have to reach out to her.
Yeah,
tell her it's okay.
Yeah. So let's talk NFC South. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons. This is your team, so I'll let you lead this one, because I don't know what's going on. All I know is that coming into next season, they've got like 19 players on their roster. They have to fill the rest with like $32 million. They've got to clear like $14 million in cap space before tomorrow. They can't restructure Matt Ryan until the 25th. I'm like, what is happening? What's happening? Are you okay?
I mean, I'm okay right now. Matt Ryan actually restructured today. And check. I love reading these, because this is great. As we said, Spot Track is where I'm looking at. Converted $21 million of salary in 2021, clearing $14 million of cap space for Atlanta. So we converted $21 million of salary into something. So take that as you will. Looks like it might have been a restructuring bonus, and then an option bonus, and then a signing bonus were the 3 things that we converted to create that $14 million. So the Falcons, as of right now, actually have money, which That's great for them. But as you alluded to, I believe on the active roster, I think we have 42 people, which that's not going to cut it. So free agency for the Falcons, probably not much at all. You saw, as we discussed earlier or mentioned, Lee Smith coming over from the Bills for a late round draft pick. So really for the Falcons, they're going to try to cut cap room as much as they can and try to rebuild in the draft, I believe. I think the Falcons will try to trade back, or I hope they trade back out of 4 and start to get Matt Ryan maybe not a weapon necessarily, but maybe a little bit better offensive line. But also they need to draft a lot on the defensive side of the football. Obviously, the Buccaneers gave kind of a blueprint on what works against high-flying offenses, and so you kind of need to follow what was successful. And they have a lot of draft capital invested in linebackers, obviously, and their defensive line. So it'll be a rough. I think depending upon what happens in the draft, it's going to be rough because the Falcons, obviously, you're going to probably make a decision on drafting a quarterback at 4. Or moving back and potentially not getting a quarterback and then having to, ride the train with Matt Ryan, which he's already really overpaid now. And now converting some of this cap space and moving it back, that means next year, God knows what he's going to be making. He was making about $40 million. And like we said, he just converted $21 million. So is he going to make $60 million next year? Is that where that 21 goes?
I'm so stressed for you guys because he was set to make $40.9 million this year, $41.6 million next year because they restructured him last year.
Yeah.
So there's so much, that's so much cap space sunk into Matt Ryan. What is your vibe on Matt Ryan? Are they going to, do you think that they are going to try to find some transitional quarterback, bring somebody in the draft that can maybe play under him for 1 or 2 years and then take over that job? Or are they really going to try to go for a more win now approach?
I think the general manager, obviously, who just came over from the Saints, and I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was a wizard with the cap, but he also was very aggressive in quarterbacks and kept some people coming in. Obviously, looked at Taysom Hill. They used him pretty much as a Swiss Army knife. So I think the Falcons, personally, I hate this as a fan, drafting a quarterback in the top 5 and then having him sit a whole year. It's in my eyes, it's wasting a top 5 draft pick. But if you can draft the draft class we have of quarterbacks this year is probably not going to happen again in the foreseeable future, I don't think. So, you may as well take your shot. Trey Lance, saw some of his tape. North Dakota State, when he did his pro day, really blew me out of the water. He can drive the ball down the field. Obviously, didn't play that much, played 1 game this past year. I think he's played 17 games total in his collegiate career. So that's disgusting to even think about taking somebody like that in the top 5. But these are the times we are in. So, if he's the guy, I'll be mad and I'll be screaming draft night, but has good tape. And when we looked at him and looks good. So I think if you're the Falcons, you won't get this many quarterbacks in the top 5 again. You're going to have to bite the bullet, although just totally not excited about that at all. So we'll see.
I feel like they're a little impatient. And you look on the other side of this division at the Carolina Panthers, and this is a team that has nothing but patience, right? They haven't done anything big, splashy, big names. They're really just taking things slow because I think they know that they're in this time of rebuilding. They're bringing in, obviously, working with a newer coach, newer staff. Yep. So I actually do appreciate what they're doing in Carolina. And this is also a team that I could see kind of going after Trey Lance, just because you look at Miami sitting at number 3, and I kind of envision them being a team. If you say Teddy Bridgewater is not our guy, which I think probably everyone watching the NFL ever at any point during 2020 is going to look at Teddy Bridgewater and say hey, that's not a long-term solution at quarterback. Love the guy, but just not. So, I think if you trade up, you try to take that number 3 pick from Miami. They really have no incentive to sit there. They could get a lot more for it. So I think for them, if the Panthers were to go up and get a guy like Trey Lance, or even, try to sit back and get someone else where they are, I mean, I don't know who's going to be around at number 8 that's going to be worth drafting, but if they could go get a guy like Trey Lance, I could see that happening. I think they were also very impressed. I think everyone watching was pretty impressed with his pro day, but I just find their whole approach to be very interesting because not many teams are willing to say, like, we are in a rebuilding mode, right? Like, if the Falcons fall into that piece where they're not willing to let the whole thing kind of tank and try to rebuild it. Not that the Panthers have really tanked, but they're definitely more, they're embracing where they are in a way that the Falcons just are not.
Yeah, I think, well, with the new direction, and this is some of the things you get when you have a new general manager, you have a new head coach, you have the general direction or the consensus has to be reached within the organization. And I'll guarantee you the conversations they're having right now is that, do they feel that team is good enough with Matt Ryan to make a push and not draft a quarterback?
Yeah.
Or, do we step on the grenade now and do that? And that's something that you have to get, ownership down, Arthur Blank, and down to Fontenot, general manager, and then down to Coach, Smith. They have to figure that out. And hopefully they all get going in the right direction. But the Falcons also have to be really careful with a team like Carolina at 8, trading up. You're trading within a division. You're also dealing with a piece of drafting a quarterback that could freaking haunt you for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So you need to really mind your P's and Q's on if you are going to take a draft trade with somebody that's in your division, especially if it's a quarterback that you want to pass on and that don't kid yourselves. If any team in the division is trying to trade up to get a quarterback, which that's what's going to happen this year, you're going to have to knock me over. They're going to have to give me probably 2 first rounds and then maybe another second rounder in this draft as well. Like, I would go to the moon with the asking price because you're going to see that quarterback for a long time. So make it worth the trade if you're going to move with a division partner in that. But I also wonder, Sam Darnold, where does he fit?
Oh,
would he fit? Where would you see him in Carolina? Could you see him there?
I can't see him there, and I don't know why. I have no reason to say no, but I do see, I don't think they're going to make a move at someone like Deshaun Watson. I really just don't see them going that far out of their pockets. Yeah. I think you look at their needs, right? Like, they do need, a corner. They need linebackers. They have to get guys on the offensive line. They have a few needs, but luckily for them, besides the quarterback, all of their needs are pretty cheap. Like, there's no guy that's going to cost them a ton to bring in, right? Like, they can fill these needs without overspending. They can bring in those veteran guys. They can get guys in the draft. They don't have to make flashy, big moves and bring in these guys that are big playmakers. Like, they can get it done just by getting productive guys who put good play on film, right? Like, that's all they have to do. So for them, they're in a really good spot because now if they want to spend that $30 million to get a quarterback or a big chunk of that $30 million to get a quarterback, and now they're restructuring McCaffrey and other players, so it could be more, but they can do that. And I don't know that it's going to be Sam Darnold. I don't know that. I think Sam Darnold has to go somewhere with a very quarterback-minded offensive coaching staff. Not that Carolina doesn't necessarily have that, but I just think that he's going to have to go somewhere that can really develop him. Like, he's going to have to go maybe just to like a San Francisco type of team, like some coaching staff that really can give him the attention he needs, because we've never seen him with a decent, competent coaching staff.
I would love, and this is, the 49ers, and now granted, Darnold is not mobile really, but I would love to see him as a second option in a Shanahan offense. They have some of the pieces there. They can do some things around there to make that offense a little bit better for him, but I would love to see him. He would go back out to the West where he was, USC, and get back out in that area. I could see Sam Fran, but I still think he moves, but I'm starting to back off Deshaun Watson now. I don't think, even though today Tyrod Taylor Tyrod Taylor was signed, obviously, to Houston today. 1 year, 10 mil, or I think 12 mil, somewhere in that ballpark. So I'm starting to back off that a little bit, though. I don't know if he'll actually get moved. And I was the biggest proponent of saying he would, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. It'll be interesting to see. I think the Panthers have to do something at quarterback. Let's talk about probably the most interesting team in this division besides the Buccaneers is the Saints. And it's fun because is Jameis Winston the quarterback? We get to talk about it. It's a good time. So obviously he signed a 1-year deal worth up to $12 million with incentives. Not a flashy number, not enough to guarantee him the job. Doesn't guarantee him the starting spot by any means. I think they're well far out of that Russell Wilson lottery, just given where they stand with the salary cap. But, he's going to have to beat out Taysom Hill essentially to secure this job. And that's assuming that they don't get anyone in the draft. They don't get anyone else in free agency. That's assuming that they don't secure any other quarterback options. It's going to be Taysom Hill versus Jameis Winston. And this is pretty interesting because I don't know. They obviously like him in New Orleans. They obviously are they're drinking the Jameis Winston flavor-aid, as you will, but I'm interested to see how this plays out. It's fun.
You know what? Maybe, I don't know, maybe Drew Brees pulled him aside and Winston never had a guy like that. He never had a guy like Drew Brees, in the meeting room, screaming at him, busting his chops, telling him how to do. And maybe this is what he needed. I mean, honestly, I don't see it, but maybe this is what happens. Maybe he goes there, but for Bucs fans, aren't you way more excited that now you have a team that you held together and Jameis Winston might actually play you now twice a year. And I mean, you get a chance to really, blow his doors off if you get it right. But I think I would look at, or I could see who could fit maybe. And I don't like this person as a quarterback, but I think system wise, he might be able to do it. Give me Mitchell Trubisky. Give me a little short, little mobile guy who can run around and throw interceptions.
I'm so tired of watching Mitchell Trubisky play football. I'm over it. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to see him on television. I don't want to hear his name. Over it.
So, okay, fine. So, okay, then let's squeeze Sam Darnold in here. You have the Saints towards the back half. You could take if the Jets got a first-round pick in the back half of the draft, you would do that. Now, if you're New Orleans, though, do you trade a first-round pick for Sam Darnold knowing you just signed Winston to that much? Probably not.
No, because I don't think that. Here's the thing. If you have Jameis Winston, what are you really losing, right? You have no cap space. You shed all these pieces. You really are in a year where you have no quarterback walking into a situation at 100%, right? You don't have the guys in place. And I'm going to say it. I don't care what Evan says in the comments. I'm going to talk about Jameis Winston for a second because it's unfortunate because Jameis Winston, you cannot sit here and say, no one can sit here and say that Jameis Winston, you can't do the comparison to Tom Brady. You can't look at these two rosters, look at these two teams and say that's the same situation, but Tom Brady got it done. It's not the same situation, right? Jameis Winston didn't come in and they didn't open the checkbook and say, who do you want to bring to Tampa Bay, right? He didn't have a quarterback to look at and learn from and grow from. He didn't walk in with all of these pieces that Tom Brady's walking in with. Now, Tom Brady earned those pieces, right? He earned that with his performance over a 20-year career. So that's taking nothing away from Tom Brady, but they're not the same situation. As someone who grew up a Florida State fan, Jameis Winston, his touchdowns come along with interceptions, right? If you look at the national championship year, that's the kind of player he is. That's not to say that those players can't succeed at the NFL level. They do. They do every year. They have before. They've won Super Bowls. Those kind of guys have been successful. It's just you have to know how to manage it. And the Buccaneers, he walked into a situation where with a young team, young guys, no one to lead him, no real development on behalf of the coaching staff and the team. And then when they were done with him, they were done with him, right? And you're walking into the New Orleans where I'm not saying he's become this fantastically better quarterback. I'm just saying he's a truer quarterback than Taysom Hill, right? He's a guy that he's going to be able to run the quarterback position a lot more effectively than Taysom Hill, especially if he has improved upon his skill set. And that doesn't mean that Taysom Hill is not going to see the field, because obviously we know regardless of who's starting quarterback, Taysom Hill is going to play and he's going to have a big role there. But I just think they're still going to be reaching for other guys, but what do you have to lose, right? Like, you're not sending Jameis Winston into the dream team and saying like, he's going to be the guy that's going to hold us back. It's like, no, you're setting him up for failure. I mean, like you're setting anyone who walks into the New Orleans situation up for failure because you didn't know how to manage your cap space. So now you're in a real pickle. And whoever walks in here is a 1-year solution at best, whether it's Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, or any other person. They're a 1-year solution, right? Like, I don't see them drafting a quarterback necessarily, but
no.
I mean, whoever they have, like, okay, what was this year going to be for you anyways? Like, why spend money and go out and get a guy that like you've never worked with? You don't know how they're going to perform. You have no idea how it's going to turn out. When if you like Jameis Winston, work with him on it. And if it lasts past this year, cool. If not, cool. What did you lose?
Yeah. I think a mentor is what he's missed his entire career. And you saw that, and he had a taste of that with Drew Brees. And now obviously Drew Brees is retired, but I mean, this is still a guy, Drew Brees, he's got wherever he's gone, he's helped.
Yeah.
Anytime he was told you're not the starter anymore, we're going to Philip Rivers, he helped. When he came to New Orleans, he helped after, Katrina and hurricane involved with the city. This is a guy that Jameis Winston will be in contact with a lot, even if if Drew Brees goes to the broadcast booth, does that job. He's going to talk to him and he'll get him through hard times, and the coaching staff work with Drew Brees so they know what to do and how to, mentor. And so, I think that, and we said this before, this could be the one time where he's got someone in the room that can push him and show him what it is to be a quarterback, to lead a team, to make the right decisions, to make the throws. And he had a taste of that, and he only got it for a year. It's unfortunate, but now he can reach out to Drew Brees anytime he wants, and he can ask those questions. He can, ask about plays. Drew Brees isn't going anywhere as far as, he'll still be very much a part of that team and conversation and whatnot. So, I think that some careers, like you said, it's all about timing. You get quarterback staff and coaches and people around you who know what they're talking about. Sometimes you get 5 offensive coordinators in your first 5 years and you're confused. So, and that's another reason quarterbacks, and I won't dive into my wormhole here, but quarterbacks are getting kicked to the curb way too early. Can't believe we're already talking about shooing Tua out the door when this guy played like 7 games. He was a first-round pick. It all just goes back to, systems, learning, having the same coach, having continuity. The guys we've seen in the game for so long have been in one organization for over 10 years. Drew Brees was 20. Tom Brady was 18, 16? I don't even know. Aaron Rodgers is 15, I think. So all those guys, and they've primarily had a lot of the same offensive coordinator staff, QB coaches, things like that. It takes that long to get that good. So when you get a guy and you sign him and you change the playbook every year, you're setting him up for failure.
Yeah, I mean, you even look at Patrick Mahomes. He didn't walk in Patrick Mahomes where he is now, right? Like, he did that work. He sat behind. And that's not to say that he sat behind a Tom Brady or a Drew Brees, but he sat behind, and he established that during those moments and during those games and during those years. So that's something that I think people are not willing to look at. But then you have the other side of the coin where you're resurrecting Ryan Tannehill from the ashes and making him a playoff contending quarterback. And so I think it's going to go both ways, but it's easier to say as a non-Bucs fan, let's not bury Jameis Winston 6 feet under just yet, because I think at one team, most quarterbacks will fail. Like, the Bucs got extremely lucky. It's very rare that you can bring in Tom Brady. It's very rare that your entire division kind of sucks. It's pretty rare that all of your rookies perform at a really high level and are game changers and make those plays, especially in playoffs where they have no experience, especially in the Super Bowl that they have no experience. So the Bucs lucked out in every sense of last year, and they're looking to luck out again in every sense of this year. But I think it's wrong to kind of write off any other team that's not following that mold, because that's not typical. But let's parade these NFC South free agency periods so far. We'll probably come back with grades because this is far from over, but let's grade them so far as of now, starting with the Bucs because it's a pretty easy one.
I mean, yeah, you have to give them an A. I mean, you can't not give them a good grade. Their staff did what they needed to do and kept together the core that took them to the Super Bowl and won. So yeah, they get an A.
I'm going to give them an A- because it does make me panic internally for them, thinking about 2022 and 2023. But for this year, I would say A+ if they're just trying to go back and do 2022 or 2021 right. Beyond that, I think you're looking at a much lower grade. All right, Atlanta Falcons.
We've done a great job of restructuring deals and cutting people. The only free agent I know of is Lee Smith coming in. So, I mean, via trade, so no, I mean, you give a D, just because of resources. Like the one thing we've talked about, every NFL team, no one saw this coming. So if you were backloaded contracts, and the Falcons have just re-signed two of their biggest players, Julio Jones and Matt Ryan, to really big deals a year before this. So they're taking it right in the face, and you have to you reap what you sow. So yeah, it's a D. I mean, you can't do anything about it. You just got to try to make your move and build back through the draft. So not a good grade there.
Yeah, I'll put them at like a C-, D+. I don't want to write them off too quickly because they haven't made a ton of moves, obviously. So I'm interested to see what they do and how they do it. That's not to say they won't succeed. Obviously, I think when you have new voices in the room and new people coming in, obviously there's always a chance that things work out and turn in the right direction. So hope is there.
Yes, hope is there.
All right, Carolina.
I mean, stable. I mean, what, C? I mean, they're just kind of everybody. The Deshaun Watson thing was kind of an eye-opening thing to everybody, and he kind of let out who he likes, and he went to Clemson, and that's in Carolina, and so teams kind of, changed a lot of their plans and kind of gave an option or a thought to that. They restructured deals, obviously, in some of their bigger players, which is good. So they got some money back in return. As far as moves, it seems like, net neutral for them. Curtis Samuel is the one player that's been talked about a lot in free agency, and we'll have to see if he stays or goes. And he's a really big piece, I think. He would definitely fit well with the Patriots. I would love to see him. He's kind of a jack of all trades. He runs those little jet sweeps, and he's, everything on the route tree. So, I mean, C, I haven't really seen any big, like you said, tracking free agency the past 48 hours has kind of been just out of just chaos. So I haven't seen any really big moves. I know they franchised one of their tackles to keep him, which was a money move. Cost them about $13 million for a tackle. I think Roten, who I haven't really heard or anything about. So that's kind of a head scratcher for me. So probably C-. The draft's really important for all the teams in the NFC South this year, trying to regroup and redo. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, for me, like a C.
I'm going to give them a B-. I'm being very nice and generous in these. I'm going to give them a B- because I like the idea that they're not trying to rush. I think this point in free agency, the value that you get for players is not great because you're jumping the gun to sign these big deals and get to players first. And I think that often leads to overpaying for guys, especially at certain positions. So I do like their patience, and I like them sitting back and kind of evaluating every possible option. Now, again, that may change depending on what they decide to do. But if they continue to step in the rebuilding direction, I like that. I'd rather a team embrace rebuild than pretend they're not rebuilding. So I'm going to give them a B- on that one. And then last, but certainly not least, the New Orleans Saints.
Well, What can you say about the Saints, folks? They're signing people to fake contracts, fully voidable deals. They got a quarterback. They got some people in there. I mean, I'm an F just on principle. Like, I don't know what you're doing and I don't understand it. And it doesn't make sense to me at all. So I don't care who you sign or what you do. I'm just giving you an F because, like you said earlier, Kelly, you're operating on a different file, a different wavelength. Something's wrong. I don't understand it. Yeah, I just don't know. So yeah, F.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is here. Again, I personally, this is, you know, when Evan's not on the show, it's fun because we can talk about Jameis Winston without getting muted, and I can like see his little icon, but he will mute me if we talk about Jameis Winston for too long any other time. So I have hope, and we have a question.
Yeah, we do. Go ahead.
Dark Sage.
Dark Sage. Yeah. What do we got? We'll let him type in. But yeah, I think we both agree. Draft will be important for all these teams, obviously. Quarterback decisions throughout most, obviously, either in transition or deciding to make a change, except obviously with the Buccaneers right now. So we'll have to see. I know that Carolina, and I just now kind of snapped back into it, they have to refill Luke Kuechly, don't they?
Yeah, they got a lot.
They got a lot
because Mike Davis also.
Davis
they've got a few pieces. But we'll see. I mean, I think out of besides the Buccaneers, this division, I think Carolina probably puts up the most. If they can get their quarterback situation figured out, I think they'll probably have the most complete, kind of well thought out scheme in this division. But I mean, that it's all dependent on what they end up doing and figuring out.
Well, the greatest thing about them is that they have $31 million in cap room. So,
I mean, it's great.
Yeah,
it's everyone's dream.
Yeah, it's easier when they can when you can make decisions and kind of move it. There you go, Evan. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
talking to Dark Sage. But what about Jacksonville? What did you think about the day while we're waiting for Dark Sage to ask this question? They had a lot of activity today.
Yeah, we re-signed some people. I really like. That's a lot. Hang on. I know
that's a lot.
Okay, I'll read it out loud in case someone's just listening to this after the fact. He said, I know MLB has guidelines in place for this season on COVID and how they want this season to go, but I'm concerned the teams with a lot of power and influence will try to dictate to baseball what they want and how they want the season to run. We have seen many times in sports leagues, team with a lot of power can sway a league to do what it wants. Do you see any chance of this occurring this season in baseball? I think in baseball, always large market teams sway. But I don't know how much it'll happen. I think at this point, things are pretty set as far as what the situation is with COVID and the protocol going forward. I know they're going to add things to that, but I don't necessarily know that it's going to be like a Yankees, Dodgers kind of monopoly over what the COVID protocol will be.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff has been set up obviously by MLB, and it has to be run by the Players Association. And so they'll work in conjunction together. I think you will see it'll be a fluid situation, obviously, trying to get a full season in. And if we run into issues or problems where you have teams, a lot of guys testing positive, I think the Players Association and MLB will try to take that into consideration and make changes on the fly. But yeah, it'll be a difficult year. I mean, obviously you're seeing college basketball trying to get through their, the NIT and getting March Madness. And you've had some teams that have kind of backed away from that and kind of moved around. So it's so funny here in Florida. Seems like life is just kind of go back to normal.
Yeah.
But knowing around the rest of the US, it's a lot different. So
I was about to
be in Florida.
I think it's interesting because small market teams, like teams in Florida, will be welcoming fans, whereas some teams in this league specifically won't be. Obviously, I think the Rangers they're opening full capacity, I guess, on opening day. Yep. So that's a whole different situation. But yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. I don't know that market size is going to influence it as much. I think it will just kind of be, and so is Seattle. So yeah, I think it really is just going to depend on local guidelines, I think, more than it is going to depend on market size. But we'll see how these go. I think it's going to be an interesting kind of test to see teams like the Rangers and how they like, I guess how it goes, right? Like how, if there's any backlash. I know in Texas, they just kind of don't care about anything. So I don't think that anything will change there. I think it'll continue to go as planned, but the MLB could always step in and be like, hey, we're not doing that. And I think that's kind of, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know that market size has a play as much, but
we'll see. But we hope a full season, an attempt at a full season will get played. We definitely want that.
Yeah. Yeah, a full season. I think now that the NFL has done it and has said like, hey, we're not stopping the season for anything, I think more leagues will follow that sort of mentality. I think we're seeing it in the NBA. I don't know how much. I don't think the NHL has had quite as many COVID problems after, barring some schedule changes earlier in the season, but I think now they're kind of in a groove. But the NBA definitely kind of started off to a rocky start with COVID, and I think they're full steam ahead, just like most leagues will be. So hopefully we can get back up and running. But I also think that there's some information about vaccines and with people, the expected timeline, I think people will be returning to stadiums quicker than we would have probably thought at winter meetings. So
definitely. We hope so.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we get out?
No, man, it's good. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, free agency, baseball still going on, spring training, Rays are looking good, Lightning still moving and grooving. So yeah, we got everything on Play the Bay pressing forward. Now, if we could just renegotiate Fox Sports on some of our cable providers and let us see the actual games and some of those sports would be good.
Big oof on their part.
Yes.
Yeah, I have nothing to add. I'm going to try to keep up with NFL free agency as much as I can. The Jags are doing some stuff, so yes, I can't complain. Shaquille Griffin really turned my mood around. I love a Griffin brother, a Griffin twin.
There you go.
So that helped my mood. It really it salvaged the rocky start I had with Urban Meyer and the rest of this coaching staff. It really did, because I was not feeling it. I wasn't feeling the moves they were making. I obviously like a re-sign of a guy that we had last year. You gotta love it. But Shaquille Griffin, they really tugged on my heartstrings there. So we're back.
That's good. I'm still waiting for Malik Hooker to come over from the Colts, because he used to play for Urban Meyer at Ohio State. Still waiting on that for safety. It's just a good old boys networking club up in Jacksonville, and that's kind of what I hoped it would not be. But if we could have just waited a freaking minute for Eric Bieniemy, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation. But alas, neither here nor there.
It's here and there, but we'll see. All right. Well, thanks for everyone who tuned in to the comments and the stream. Make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PlayTheBayTB. We're also on Twitch now at Play the Bay, so catch us there, and we will see you guys next Tuesday.
Great show, Evan. Feel better. I hope your innards are better, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Play the Bay. We'll be back again with another episode on the Believe Podcasting Network. If interested in advertising, please contact Believe.com.